How's everyone doing today? I hope you all are doing well. We are going to be doing more space engineers today. Mostly just working a little bit further in the way that everything's going. We'll be doing some space engineers. Mostly I want to get the ship at least most of the way finished by the end of this stream so that the next stream we do in space engineers can be fully involved. The other thing that I'm probably going to end up doing is, well, yeah, we'll be doing another, hopefully I'll be able to get something set up soon for everything else figured out, so, yeah. I've done a little bit of testing, but yeah. We are going to load back into the world. I do believe that this will be everything great. Yeah. How are y'all doing? Alright. Load. Hopefully we'll be able to get this ship finished by the end of today. We may not have the highest level of detail, but hopefully we can get some pretty precise work on it by the end of the day. But yeah. And hopefully I can, make sure that everything can be returned to working smoothly on the Twitch side of things, just as soon as I can get everything to function on that side. Yeah. Interesting. I just noticed that that tree is kind of made out of, I think that's 3 trunks that are rotated around each other. The one that's right to the left, tracers work both ways. That they do. That is a very, very reasonable statement. Tracers work both ways. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Whew. Hopefully everything can be done fairly well. At least to some degree. The main goal of this ship is again to be a version of survival made ships. That's something I've noticed. I'm not great when it comes to making things in survival. In this game, at least. Hopefully I can get better at that, but... Alright. And I can also fix an error that I made, which I found out last time, which was... I don't have any sideways thrust on this thing. I remembered all but the sideways thrust. And I think one of the best places to put the sideways thrust is probably going to end up being right up here. I think we'll use these thrusters. They're a little bit further sticking out, but there we go. So we'll just kind of use that to continue. And yeah. I need to get a better view on what I want to do with the ship soon, so that'll be fun. I do like its basic look, though. I think this sort of boat hull, as Naresh pointed out last time, I think is a really cool design. And I think I want to stick with that sort of vision of it. Which actually means that I'm tempted to put the bridge up here and make maybe guns along the side, or even make that an open deck. That could be a fairly decent place for, like, open deck shuttle kind of vehicle. Maybe. Although, I don't know. That area does look really good open. Hopefully I can make it look good if I add in some other stuff. I think the other thing I've got to do is I've got to work on designing the exterior plating. I just realized 2 thrusters weren't running. These were not connected at all. That is quite the failure on my part. I think what I can do here is if I use one of these conveyor junctions, oh, that's not the right conveyor junction. The conveyor converter that I wanted. There it is. There we go. So now that should... Not connected. Why? Is it the wrong orientation? No, it's the right orientation. It is the wrong orientation. This needs to be this way. And then this needs to just be like that. That will connect them properly. Okay. There we go. And now everything's connected. I also will probably... I want to create an area for it, but I honestly really like this design. This sort of... Oh, I love this shape. And I definitely think that if I made bigger ships, I'd probably keep that sort of profile. That almost upper nose, top breast sort of thing in the front. Where it kind of looks like it goes up and then the rest of the ship kind of goes. So it's got like an outer sticking piece. But then I also love the shaping that I've got for like this. This sort of shape I love. So I think I'll probably continue with it as well. Which actually does mean that I'm going to have to start deciding how I want this to go. Which is going to be great. I did just realize that I have mucked up a little bit, but that'll be fine, I suppose. And that this has to go down now. And then, of course... I don't know. I suppose what I can do is I can do it this way. You can kind of go out like this. That like that, and then like that, which would put it like this. And so we want to, of course, keep that sort of look of being a ridge line there. So if I can keep this. And then I can kind of continue the... sort of alignment. I don't know if I like the flatness of that. I think I want to build up maybe... Yeah, I think that'll do good. Because then this would go basically like this. And then continue... And the other bit is I need to somehow connect this reasonably smoothly to this. While also following the sort of over-down sweep that we've got going on. So I want to try to use right here to kind of... It's gonna go in. I think we want to go in like this. I want to pull it back out this way a little bit more, so we'll actually shorten that. And then we'll build you up. Alright, and then... that is a little too flat, so we'd have to raise it by at least the one block here. And then... Are we at the same height? I think we are at the same height over there. Or we kind of bridge it up a little bit further. And then maybe... Oh, come on. Because again, these are meant to be a upper lip. But I want to actually provide basically a secondary line. That's what I'm going to kind of do right now, is I'm just going to kind of make the implication of that being a lip on the edge rather than that being the, what's it called? That being the flat layer. That is actually a lip that kind of curves up on the edges, creating a sort of thicker boundary line. And I may also use in some places, like maybe here where it'll split before reconforming back to a point, hopefully. If I manage to do this well. So we'll just kind of try to continue this. Which will be rather interesting. As this will be very thin. And so any shots at it will probably allow it to break. The other bit is that this next layer will sort of be, I guess, like that for part of it. Maybe even lasting a little bit longer into this one out of pure necessity. And then this just kind of continues all the way across. Yeah, I can make that work, but I can't make the other bit work as well. So that'll just be sort of a ridgeline piece. Since this has to be relatively flat. That can't start there. That's got to start over here. Because I got to make sure that it ends not before this. This will end 2 blocks early. Yeah, I think that still looks pretty decent. And we kind of get saved by the fact that this is going to be a point for a ridge along the armor. Which will probably be the remnant layer. Okay. And then, of course, adding in this sort of double ridge seems interesting. I don't know if I can make it work, though. I really don't know if I can make that work. Maybe I can do a half ridge, but I don't know if I can make the full ridge work. Because the other bit's going to be sloping. Which I don't know if that'll work well. Although maybe. Maybe I can make it work. I'll have to give it a try at the very least. Since this kind of does have to be a relatively flat area, which is kind of unfortunate, but... And then we'll just kind of build that up. All right. Yeah, I think that'll be good. I think breaking it off there works, though I think I might extend you by 1 and you by 1. As well as extend that like that. Just because I think that looks nicer. That's sort of a ribbed look. I think that looks pretty decent. Adds some decent breakup to this engine area, which, as is already shown, really flat. All right, and then I've got to somehow I guess that works. Yeah, that kind of works. Although now this is now just one flat angle, which means that I've got to, whilst I shrink this space, not do too much, because otherwise it's just going to be a flat piece of flat area, which is not great. I can probably get away with the 3 flat, but right after this, I've got to go down. Oh look, we're up to 3 concurrent viewers. Hello. Whoever the third is. I am trying to provide the skin for a vehicle that I'm making. And then I get to go through the entire thing and make all of its internals function. Somehow. And I'll kind of run it this way. Yeah, I think this works still fairly well. And then if I provide the extra block there, then that provides this. To kind of still push out without doing too much. This is at this level. That's not great. No, that still doesn't look half bad. I think I can suitably get away with the 3-block distance, but I do need to drop it by a tad and pull wider than I am now. Hopefully I can make this work. Hopefully I can make this work. This is just going to be fairly flat. Only to add something to break this up, but as things stand, I have no idea what I can do to break the distance up. Another bit is these are still slightly too low. I think I'm gonna go drop this by one more. So I'm gonna go pull this by 1 layer blocks, basically this height. Pull you forward a tad, drop it down there. That kind of does get rid of the whole look for the lip piece, so we'll I'll just simply get rid of it. There you go. And then this one would just kind of get rid of it this way. And kind of rebounds upward. Which I think I'll do it this way. Yeah, I think that can work. And then if I continue you by 1, go down, and then provide the 2 block. And then that can be a 1 block. And then go down. And it matches, but does not exceed. I think I can make that work. And I think we'll get rid of that. Allowing for the next one to actually go off down a bit early. Three block. And then snipping that one by 1. There we go. And then that would make the ending still work well. And then just continue this. And then maybe dipping. Alright, that would look pretty decent, because that now allows me sort of the ability to sharpen the curve a bit, which will do very well to kind of finish off this sort of thing. And honestly, I like the way that that looks, especially once I provide the rest of each of these plates. Because the other thing that I might do is I might add a ridge going basically around these thrusters. So along this side of the thrusters, pulling like a ridge and just pulling something from up here, and then using that thruster area as an area where it actually dips down in between two plates, creating a streak through the middle where I would use a darker color to highlight energy and such. The other bit I have to take into consideration is, of course, how much fuel this is going to consume, which I do have to manage to keep and store. But I think I can make that work pretty well by simply using a good chunk of this nose for fuel storage as well. So the nose and aft will be fuel and batteries and other junk like that. Same with in between floors, allowing for some potential hazards, but still works pretty well. And then we're just going to kind of continue to build this out. And then I want to get to most of the way past the thrusters before I do this. There we go. I think this will do well. And there we go. So now that's steepened the curve inward a bit. Because the idea would be that it curved in, maybe curve out again for another pod of thrusters. But then finished with these sorts of wing pieces towards the middle. And these will be kind of more back this direction. So as it pulls in, it's not going to stay that pulled in. I also like the curved back with the pointed front. So it kind of starts pointed and then gradually curves its way through things. I think that'll look very good. Let me just clear the weather. Remove weather. As well as making it brighter out so that I can actually see everything. But yeah, I think this is going to look really good. Alright, so now I guess we just continue to throw blocks everywhere. Of course, a lot of this will be built on top of later on. In fact, I think I might even take a small billowing area there, just simply to add kind of difference and shape. Alright, and then we're gonna kind of dip. Alright. There we go. I think that's starting that, and then I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a lot of this section right here be further into maybe this sort of height, but then once it goes to over the very edge, it gets pulled back maybe even slightly further. So it'll kind of come in and then really pull out, maybe even getting slightly wider to form 2 points a lot further back. Because the other thing that I can do is I can sort of create a an inward thin spine that kind of peels out from this, especially if I work well with the colors. I can very easily create a vertical spine that kind of pulls up outside of that middle crack. I think that would actually look really cool. Create sort of like a vertical spine, which will then have like antenna and other dishes on the sides and back of it. The other bit is I think right here works very well as a place to place a name. So I can figure out how to make the name of the ship, which I will have to figure out. By the way, letter blocks, are those available for small blocks? Where are the letter blocks? Those would be... wait, what is ATE? Oh, it's that one. Let's see. Letters. They do, in fact, have the letters for small grid. So I can brick build the layer, or I can simply make the letters afterward. Good. I like that quite a bit. All right. And we're just gonna kind of continue with the steeper angle of the ending at about 3 again. All right, and then I think what I'm gonna do is I think we'll do that, but then once it gets to really steep down, we'll kind of just not necessarily cut it off, but more balance it out. And I think the other thing we're going to do is I am going to elongate this a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to pull the very end of the spike. That way I kind of pull the spike a little bit steeper. I like that also. I think that was good too. So it's kind of got that frontal spike, kind of curves, but still a little pointed towards the back end. And I do think what I'm going to end up doing is around this area, using a half block gap, so a half block edge, to kind of use a curve up half block, and then drag sort of a spine that'll go up from the very back, and maybe curve up a bit. Because I can also use that to house, you know, other pieces, maybe not necessarily a thruster, but I could at least give it some of the design as like antenna and other sort of dishes being brought up a little bit, like a comms array that's built behind the main area. I think I can make it work pretty well. All right, so let's continue. And I'll just kind of add in like a just simple 4-block ridge there. Who knows why that might exist, but it does. We're gonna again go 4 blocks. And we'll extend it by 1 more. Good. And then we'll kind of pull this back a bit more. And then we might steepen that up to a 4. Because I want to get it to at least probably over to where this layer is by the time that we finish. So 2 more layers. Yeah. And then we'll kind of balance it out as we go down the steeper end. And then it swoops back out as it comes down and swoops out. I think that'll look really good. Actually, I absolutely love this look. I think that'll look really nice because that balance will sort of, it pulls some of the attention towards the back a bit, Honestly, this looks luxury. I could almost make this a luxury yacht kind of design. That is beautiful. I love it. Definitely don't like hydrogen engines as much, but meh. They do their job pretty darn well. And then what I'll do is, again, down. Or again. I think we'll do probably one more. And then that'll be the end of that. Also, yeah, I think that'll do good. The other bit that I'll have to keep in mind, though, is that these are very fragile and will break pretty much instantly. There we go. Not as much of a fan. I think we'll keep this ridge pulling backward a bit more. Even though this does reduce it, I think we'll reduce it and we'll keep that reduction. Again with 4. And then I think the next one will only be like a 3. That way, even looking from the side, I'd have to find a good way to handle these. But I think if I can make a good under this side carrying, that would look really good. Yeah, I think this will do very well. I'll have to figure out what to put under the wings to give the wings sort of a reason to exist and a sort of thickness to them. But if I split them up, I could always make that be a way to kind of build to the underbelly and sort of do a minimal connection piece, right? So if I do like a 3-block gap, and then that gap sort of widens as it comes to the front, I could use that to kind of build a under portion which mimics this a little bit with its points, but maybe a full connected underbelly that I maybe split up towards the center. Yeah, I think that's what I can do. So I can create a central point at the front. It sort of comes back a little bit, diverges into 2 chunks, still with the merged point, and then maybe have it go in and out of these. Maybe. I still don't know if I'm going to be doing the cargo on those sides. I might, but I'd have to design basically false boxes. They won't be able to move, but I think I can make it work. Who knows, though? It's very hard to kind of come up with, because the other bit is this is really going to have to be put to the test as a ship for potential combat. Three, and then yeah, I think I'm gonna kind of keep that to about that level as we sort of go down. Most of this steepness is just gonna kind of be pretty much the exact same. This will literally just go pretty much all straight across. And then this will go out pretty much the same, except for it'll widen. I think that looks pretty good. This one will just kind of continue straight back. Maybe slightly widen here. but just simply flatten it, remove the two misplaced, and then of course just kind of keep with this. There we go. And it looks pretty good. Again, build it out at about 2 blocks out. It'll be really interesting to see how it does if I try to make it go into any sort of combat. I think I'll probably build you out just one more. So now we kind of start that kind of curve inward. Looks a little too steep, so I think I'm going to remove you and turn you to that. That way it looks like it curves a little bit more. In fact, I'll even make this one flat. So we'll do probably this layer, which more or less gets to just be straight across up until this point where it rides out. And that will be probably the point that I bring it that. Then, of course, we're just going to bring this one back. And then we'll kind of pull this. Then we'll stick with that. And we'll just kind of continue this. There we go. That just kind of merges that a bit. I think I'll extend this a little bit more, just so it kind of bends that a little bit more gradually. Which I think will work pretty well. And then we'll come down here. And then these will more or less be flat. This will extend by another one. This will be absolutely massive. That goes out by yet another one. So it's 2, 1, 1. And then I think I'll probably pull this up by 1. We'll make that a 2. Next will be 3, then a few other 3s. Ooh, I love this sort of just... This look, I think, is beautiful for just simple shaping. And I don't know if I'll ever refine the shape. That's one thing I always have a trouble with, refining shapes. As to refine a shape takes a lot more than it does to just base shape something, so and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply add in a little extra. No. That works. I think that works, and then maybe doing this. Yeah, that'll work to kind of break up the larger, flatter plane. Especially if I add in this right here. Just because that kind of blends that a little bit better. This one will be, again, mostly a flat plane. But this time will not get built out further and will in fact just go down. And then we just kind of continue with that. 3, 3, then I'll do a 4. And then we'll kind of try to finish building out some of the rest of that wing. And then we'll kind of build this to be another 3. So really, we'll just really peek out quite a bit further. Because it'll probably end up a little bit further than the main spike. Which I think works well. And then we just kind of really build it out further. 3 one more time. Good. And then we'll kind of move it back down to 2 again before we finish off the spike. And then, of course, if I can manage to coat the engines sufficiently, like make these panels look good sufficiently, and this could actually work pretty darn well, especially if I kind of pull that down a bit so the top engines kind of more or less merge with the top. So if I merge at this level, right, so if I merge, actually if I merge at this level, we're gonna solidify that. There we go. And so what that would kind of do is that would allow me to kind of pull from about this position and then kind of pull it up like that, and then from below and then just kind of steepen that, and then merge sort of like this, more or less, as it slowly and then just kind of yeah. Because then what I can do is I can kind of pull it wider, and then slowly it becomes less and less steep, and that can kind of merge with the top. So I more or less just simply do the bottom and sort of quick curve this edge. I think I can make that work pretty well. Let me just finish the rest of this outer plating. And I don't know if I'm going to make this thick or I want to keep it the thin blocks. I don't know yet. But I do think I'll move this to a 2 and then a 1 and then, you know, very quickly pull the rest of the spike forward. Because I do want the main spikes to be the primaries, so. But it'll be interesting to see how this ends up, because I honestly have no idea. I think the other thing I could do is I could, in fact, go in from the outside edge, creating a secondary, basically, plate that kind of splits into two, again, from the main body. So, I don't know if I want to maybe pull the main body outward with it, and so the wide curve covers part of the main body, or what, but who knows? I know I want a certain look to it, and that's the look I'm gonna get, so. But it'll be interesting to say the very least. I also have no idea how much of this I'm going to actually want to try to smoothen out, because I'll be honest, smoothing things out gets rid of a lot of blocky detail, and the blocky detail is very hard to kind of miss. And then next we'll do 2. And I like the idea that it kind of curves a bit. And then we just kind of elongate you. So it'll be 2. So it just kind of curves, and then it'll just kind of stack at the very end. So I'm just going to do that. And then we'll just gonna flatten that out. I'm gonna have the very end of this. And then we'll just kind of finish the rest of the blocking from here. So what we'll do is it'll just kind of go from 2 into, well, honestly, I think I'll pull right there. Please stop. I would like to bend that inward a bit. Come over here. And then just kind of slowly making it get a little wider until we send all the way to the way flatter back area. It shouldn't take too many more blocks. I think one more widening and that'll be that. So, and then we'll just kind of see how this ends up playing out. Because I think I'll also add some, balling in the center, where it kind of raises a bit towards the center, but then flattens back down to the point. So that's a 2. That's a 2. I think I'll make it raise up one there. And then from the 2 to, we'll make this. And then we just kind of elongate you. So like a 3, and then this one will elongate to a 5. And then maybe we'll do one last layer just to be. And then we just kind of add in a extra long piece. There we go. And there we are. Honestly, I think that looks pretty darn good. What I think is funny is just the fact that all but the very central column is kind of pointless. But I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start filling in chunks. So we'll go from the middle up until this point. Then we'll fill that in. Then we'll fill the very nose in. And we're just going to start filling in what these outer walls actually look like, which means that I get to take another crack at doing this, more or less. So that's nice. So we go up, up. Need to keep in mind the two, and then we kind of go up. There we go. Good. And so now what I'll do is I'm just going to simply now I simply get to make this part extend quite a bit. And hope that it looks good. Because I haven't the slightest idea if it will or not. All right. And then we just kind of continue with this. So we're gonna have that upper lip, and then it'll drop down quite significantly. There we go. And then, of course, we'll just simply connect you. And then we're going this way. We just have to go this way a bit. To do it a little bit further. Then we'll just kind of go up somewhere. Bridge you with that. This one gets to do that probably from, we'll say, this position onward. So from there, this gets to go all the way back to that. And then the rest of this gets to good. All right. And then this is going to be where it has to climb all the way over again. So this will be sort of a most of the way angle. All right. I'll be honest, I really have no idea what it is that I'm doing. But... And then we'll kind of use that to provide the 2-block distance. We'll make you go 1. And we'll just kind of continue this until it looks like an okay time to just drop down another layer and continue with whatever I was doing. I have no idea. Everything I build is entirely based on what looks interesting. What I'll do, I'll bring it down from there. very interesting design, I do suppose. As we try to finish off this. Because the other bit is once I create the shell, I can make indents in the shell for where I need things to be. As long as I know what I'm doing when it comes to making a shell. The other bit is adding in certain areas like this. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of continue from this layer. Now I have no idea. I could make this go up at this level. Which I suppose works, yeah, because then when I add in you... And then I guess in order to keep the lip going, I just have to re-add it, I guess. Yeah. I think that just kind of adds the lip again. Because this is going to be the really interesting point. Which is that a lot of this really is rather an experimental idea. I suppose at this point I can go inward and we'll see. All right. And that's going to be fun because that means that at this layer, this is like this. Nothing else can happen. Now that that's like that, that is the end. Which basically means that as this goes down lower, it just has to eventually go to a point where we just kind of slowly build it up. Before it merges together, and we just do that again. And I can only hope that this looks good in the end. Oh, I'm at the foggiest. Which is really fun to deal with, not having the slightest idea what I'm doing. Because this basically has to go all the way up. and then go up again, and then go backward a bit. Which now tells me that this line then has to more or less continue until I pull it down. And then we just pull this into U. And now this is a lot steeper of a build. Which is interesting because, yeah, I basically just have to more or less have to continue the angle Yeah, I think connecting that'll make that just fit slightly better, but it's really going to be difficult because this is going to have to be built up. I guess I'll build it up in a dual layer. But it's like part of this is just going to end up having to be literally just this stuck like this. Yeah, I guess that's just what I gotta do. And then if I want to keep that lip, I think I've got to do that, and then I think I've got to, yeah, just kind of cut it off like that. Yeah, I guess that's just what I gotta do. And to be fair, that doesn't look half bad, especially if I can do really well in that front half. Now I get to somehow finish this, which now tells me to pull this back a bit and remove there we go. Goody, 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 goody. All right. And then we just gotta pull this back. Gonna come up there. And then we'll return further back. And then this is just kind of has to go with the sharper angle, and that's just the way that's gotta work. And then I guess I can do this. And then we just kind of continue forward. This is interesting to see. I guess one thing I'll probably have to do after I finish this is work on the painting. Which will be rather the interesting design. Because I'll have to paint like the edge of it at least a different color. And then there we go. And we just kind of continue the and I guess this really does make part of this really annoying to deal with. Although it is rather interesting to see how it just slowly gets wider and wider and wider. It's also interesting because I'm going to have to end that one right there. Literally to fix part of this will require me to basically just go in at this level and just kind of go inward a bit. Oh, come on. There we go. There we go. I suppose that'll have to work. And then, yeah, this just... All right. And then we just kind of... There we are. Honestly, that looks really nice. Though again, I don't really know how I'm going to smooth these out. Oh, the real fun will be doing that. Though... Ooh, Nick. Oh. Oh, gosh. Alright. Alright. Yeah. I am going to go pee. Go to like this black color. And I am going to paint all the area that is meant to be a border. Actually, you know what? No. Not a black. I'm gonna grab this blue. More towards like the purple. Up saturation, lower value. We'll use this purple as the border, and then use a white as the internal blocks. All right. A very interesting design, I'd say, but I think it'll look good. All right, yep. As it slowly... Oh, I'm going to have to repaint those. This also helps to keep a differentiated zone. And then we'll as we'll just kind of keep this paint scheme along the border. Well, I could do it only on the inner. You know what? Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I think I am going to keep it along the inner and the outer, but this inner edge right here will not get the paint. So we'll move that back to the default and repaint these. I think that'll look really nice. And then we'll also repaint the inner blocks painted there. Move back over to the purple. And then we'll move back over to the front end here where alright, and then we just kind of keep this paint. As we just kind of keep this paint. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how, well, that'll be fun to deal with. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how kind of this border is helped by having a proper colored. Oh wait, I can just. There we go. This kind of helps keep a differentiation between the two areas. But you think it'll look good. And then we just kind of, yeah, keep this. And then we just kind of continue this. Good. And then we just kind of. There we go. And yeah, I think that, like, the purple strip looks much better than I think it going around the internal corner. I think that looks really nice. And then the other thing that I can do is, yeah, I can add in, like, let's say along this row right here, add, like, an extra layer of blocks just to kind of differentiate a section. Maybe split it open and then allow maybe a window or something there. And then, like, up top here, this is really flat. So if I wanted to add, like, a gun here, this would be the sort of area you'd add the gun. Maybe even pushing this further back. Adding in, like, a gun right there, I think would look good. And then, of course, yeah, the gun right along the stop there. Honestly, this is just beautifully done, and I love this. All right, back to the base colors we go. All right. Good, and then we'll kind of go. Good. Good. And then we just kind of continue this way, kind of keep that sharper angle relatively sharp. There we go. And then we'll just kind of add in the row that'll go right here. Honestly, this isn't half bad of a design. And honestly, I think it looks really good. I am very tempted to do some weird leveling up, though. And then we'll just kind of continue. And then what I'll do is I'll just it just very slowly builds out. So this one will stick out. We'll say 2. This one will go from here to there. That, and then this one can easily go like that. With that being expanded, at least the 1 brick, maybe even 1 more. And then we'll just expand that one by the 1. And that one will be a 2. There we go. I think this works pretty well. What time is it? Only 7:30? Nice. Alright. Well, I haven't been streaming. Oh, I've only been streaming for an hour and a half. And then, yeah, this will be where the fun part really does begin. Is that as we slowly progress, this is going to very quickly run some certain risks. So that kind of very quickly widens the base of this. And then we'll just kind of extend you. All right. Well, that's interesting. Not so certain I like that as much, so I'm going to peel you back and we'll make this more this way, and then we'll just simply induce the desired shaping a bit. Trim you out. A lot of the top could probably be pulled back by one. And that kind of straight across. I don't like as much, so I'm going to pull this back by 2 more. Maybe pull that one back by 1 more. 3, 2, 1. And what we'll do is we'll drag you out 1, you out to there. There we go. I think that works pretty well. At the very least, it allows for the kind of there we go. This has turned out to be very steep very quickly. Which I don't like. I don't know. Hopefully it starts looking better soon, but it was real steep right now, which I'm not quite certain I like as much. Though I do suppose that is kind of the problem with this, is that it's steep. This is going to be a pain in the rear end if I tried to smoothen it out. There we go. You know what? I actually like that. I very much like the shaping. And now I just need to bridge the shaping from here to the main base and remove these pieces because they don't look any good. And then, yeah. So bridge the two and then make this inner section, you know, get its shaping done. But I'm gonna be honest, that is beautiful. I love it. I am so pleased with this. All right. I think I'm going to work primarily off of this for now. So we're gonna bridge you forward. Because that's the bit, right? There's a good chunk of this is around where thrusters are located. So at worst off, we'd do this, probably using the plates to kind of add some layer of protection. Although maybe I might shrink these down in a central area. But as for basic connective tissue, I suppose I could do that and then way. I want to look ugly doing it that way. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of keep that flat relative and then remove you and just kind of continue you across. Maybe adding in sort of something along those lines, which would then allow me to continue to this would literally be one wall, which does mean that on the inside I'm gonna have to make a separate wall, and that I've got to somehow go from probably, I'm gonna say, we'll say from here. I think I'll move you to a little beyond. And then we'll kind of go like this. Just to kind of bridge this up to that level where we can then continue the roof. So good, and then we kind of good. And then we'll go to there. It would provide this to go like this. Doesn't quite line up as well as I'd like it to, but I can make it align fairly well. I don't know if I like that. That kind of dip down for the thrusters. Although I don't find it horrible, so I'll keep it for now. And then I can do the top, and then we'll finish that gap down there. So, for now, the biggest gap that we're going to have is to fill this, which more or less is just do that. Once the outer skin is finally made, I can really do some fun with it. Okay. Wait, does that need to be raised up? That does need to be raised up. Yeah, I think that works pretty well. Maybe even extend it a little bit further. And then we'll, oh. Do not want to build large chunks. I just want to kind of get the walls finished. Because once I get every functional component, then I can port this into the world and it'll do very well. I believe it will. right. Honestly, this is just going to be a lot of mass placing a block. Though I do think it'll look really good. The other thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get rid of everything else and put it up against a backdrop that's not the same color. So that'll be fun. But I think if I can color the bottom of it, you know, make the platform it's on, change its color and whatever. I think this looks beautiful. Although this will be fairly easy to destroy, as a railgun will pierce literally through the entirety of the ship. And most likely whatever the frick is beneath it as well. Is this same level? It is same level. So we'll just kind of add in the raised platform bit a little bit. And then we kind of I think I'm going to remove a little bit of that. That way, when I do this, which I should probably now add in the inner line. Which tells me to go forward, down. All right. There we go. Good, which does tell me that this is going to make this an interesting occurrence. I guess as that kind of raises that a little bit, though I could probably continue this a little bit. I'm gonna go like this. And then I'm gonna right. Perfect. Because now when I add this, that fits pretty well. Man, this thing is beautiful. It's a nice, sleek shell. Most of this will be fairly easy, I think, because this will remain relatively flat. You know, relatively flat, just kind of maintaining a rough good, and then we'll just kind of boom, and then we'll do pretty similar to the top area up there. So we'll just kind of more or less just kind of come around. Adding this. Adding a fairly decent barrier, but... Oh god. Alright. Because the fun bit with this is that, you know, as everything stands, okay. And so, as that stands, this kind of fairly quickly allows for the building of extra parts, which will help, as I'm just going to kind of build this as a flat wall, 3 down all the way across, basically, which I get to add that, basically. There we go. And do the same thing here. Good. Good. All right. Good, 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 good. And then this still has to go down by 1. That's what we'll do. We'll just... make it go down by 1. There we go. And we'll just kind of continue doing the same thing. Just kind of continue drawing out the layer and eventually it'll work out well. Eventually. And so now this one, luckily, is at the same level, and so this one gets to be completely flat. And then this one is going to have to go down somewhere, so... forward, 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 drop, forward, 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 drop. I have no reason for which angles I give everything. I just kind of do. And we're just gonna kind of go back a little bit. Alrighty. This is interesting. And then this one, this is literally just a flat plane. We'll at least go to there. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll just simply continue this line. Just gonna continue the sharp line. Not really with any reason, but this is just going to be a continuation of the dark line until we get to about there, where we'll be able to kind of curve it off like we did with the other side. And then, of course, similar event, just there we go. Honestly, that looks really freaking sweet. All right, let's work on this sort of barrier. This will just go straight down no matter what. So all right, so this just gets to go as far as the other bit can. So we'll work on this. Honestly, I have no idea why I've decided to do it this way, but this is the way we're doing it, so. Good. And then we'll just kind of go there. There we go. And then, yeah, I have no idea how this is gonna go. I do think I want to change up how this nose is. Maybe keeping this middle beam deeper down the center. So go forward. All right, that could work. So it kind of comes up, curves back in, and then you can kind of see it merge with the rest of that frontal nose, providing that ridge looks really nice. I'll have to do some specialty work to kind of better blend these together. I like that look. Honestly, I need to figure out how I want to handle that central area. Because what I'm tempted to do is I'm tempted to leave it mostly empty besides adding in like 1 or 2 guns. But I'm also tempted to create like a small ship maybe that sits at the very back of it. That would kind of just detach and fly off. But I also like the idea that like towards like here-ish, there's this area that'll basically go kind of like this. And then this just kind of merges on this way, right? Because you can still make it through there, and then you can kind of go forward. And I like the idea that there's just a gun here, or 2. which would, of course, mean that I'd have to provide a elevation difference. But I think if I created maybe an elevation change. So maybe might work. Might be able to make this work. And then maybe just elongating this. Because then the end of this gun platform would probably end up being somewhere like here. Right, so you'd have probably one gun on this platform, one gun on this platform. So you'd have your stacked guns, then it'd go back further. I'm half tempted to actually do that. Like, continue going back, stacking guns, and then maybe even, going out wider. Ooh, that might be something. As it kind of sticks up, going out wider, setting two guns, and then creating, like, a bridge. That might look really cool. I'm gonna try it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So what I'm gonna do is we're just going to flatten you. We're going to reduce you to about this height. And I am going to balance you to probably this height. And so what I'll do is I'll just simply balance this. And flatten this out. So you can kind of have that with that. And then I might even add a small 3x nose. And then what I'd do is I'd potentially... Right, because this looks cool, having this kind of rise through the split. Right? And so what I can do is if I raise you up, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a flat plane covering pretty much the entire section like that. There we go. Don't like that sound, but I'll deal with it. Right? And so what we'll have is we'll have this sort of area where it'll, you know, we'll flatten it out a little. And so that'll be your access, right? Because this is still wide enough for a person. And so I can put a door, right? Right there. And so from the sort of area you can go over here and see the guns on the deck, basically. And then that'll also be something that I can kind of do over maybe here. If I decide to create that sort of thicker beam, maybe 2 to 3 blocks thicker, and then it kind of pulls down and merges more to the center. What I can do is on the top of that, I can add guns. So maybe it just kind of spurs off from down here across and then underneath, and I can add the guns there. So we'll have like the name, and then right behind the name, a gun. Maybe even a gun at the front of the nameplate as well. Allowing for sort of side guns, and then your sort of risen center area here. Right, because if I go to the guns, these aren't very large. So like, right here would probably be where I'd put, not an assault, maybe this might be where I would put a, maybe I might right here add in the, ooh, not rocket turret type 2, maybe Gatling version 2. Yeah, so maybe doing like a Gatling version 2 here, and then what I can do is I can then get rid of the white in that area and do rockets. So we'll do a Gatling right on top of a rocket, or actually you'll be pulled further back so I can have room to connect you properly. And then what I can do is I can, of course, get rid of you. Do you. We'll have you be a rocket type 2. I'm gonna raise that one up by a few blocks. So what I'll do is I will re-add in the floor. And what I'll do is I'll just simply use, where are the standards? Quite simply, what I'll do is I will use, which one of you? Was it you that had the... Really wish that there was something that would have those cuts in them, but nothing will have the cuts like that. So what I can do is I could do this. Although what I could also do is I could, of course, run you. And then, I don't know, maybe... Ooh, that's what I can do. I can run it like this. So I can run you, and then... I don't know, where are the blocks I am looking for? And then where is you? And then run that. So I kind of pull that up a bit into the rocket turret, and then using another row of blocks to then create a good space for the Gatling turret. Gatling V2, which I can, of course, pull to this distance because I think that looks good. Let's see. You know what? I think I'm gonna swap those two. So we're gonna put the rocket turret in the back, Gatling up front. Because I think that looks better and it looks bigger. So the Gatling still can aim at pretty much everything. This still gets its view, which I like. It still sort of will allow for the ease of, dealt with stuff. So if I go over to here, where is the... There it is. Adding in that. And then maybe even adding in the half blocks, kind of running in between. Besides maybe this one where we'll maybe, I don't know. That doesn't look right, but a half block also doesn't look quite right. That's not good. You're gonna be too big. There we are. That would work. It kind of still does the point, allowing for that to kind of be addressed a bit. I think these basic guns on front would look really well, and then quite simply using half block, maybe doing that with another half block. There we go. I think that looks pretty darn good. And then, of course, we can add in... Yeah, I think that would do it for that part of the beam. But I think right up here, we'll want a custom turret. Maybe here a custom turret. So, let's see. If I were to add in custom turrets, I'd probably add them in on the advanced rotor 3x3s, just because they're big, and so that allows a decent scale for things. So how does that look? I think those are well enough spaced out. You kind of have these two, which I think are well spaced. I could even add a third, so it'd be like, you know, Gatling, rocket, Gatling, and then in comes the big turrets. Though that might make them a little too close together, though I could probably pull that bigger one a little further back. But I think that looks pretty decent, like that. And then what I do is I would run a conveyor converter right up top. And where are my rigid weapons? So these would then be on a rotor. And then would probably be at this level. So we'd want to go attach. Is that too big? I don't know. The other bit I could do is I could do the assault cannons and maybe do a quad assault. I do like the idea of mixing in assault and railguns. So maybe 2 assault, 1 rail. So 2 quad assault, 1 dual rail. And then, yeah, I could do that somewhere pretty well. But I do think that if I want to make that look good, what I'm going to have to do is cut the 3x3 hole into that. Please stop. So we'll, all right. Ooh, too close. Needs to go up 1. Okay. So we need to do that. Oh. Right, that's what I just did. So that would provide the 1 block up. And then, of course, adding in that. That would probably be laid this way. Do I have hinges anywhere? I don't know if I do. I might not. Nope, don't got hinges anywhere. Alright. What I'll do is I'll go over to the one that has the things. Hinge. We'll replace the drills with the hinges. And then what we'll do is I need fairly basic conveyor converter. Good. And then easiest option would actually be to do it there. Plant the hinge there. Right, where is it? Then we do conveyor. And then we just kind of add that. We'll drop it down by 1. Perfect. And then what I can do is simply this. A very basic quad setup. And then all I gotta do is quite simply armor this back end up. And provide it with a camera. Do I have cameras anywhere? I do have the cameras. Good. What we'll do is we'll simply grab one of you. Grab the half armored. Grab the half armored. Right, that's not really gonna work as well. Yeah, not really gonna work as well. If I place it there, it's only gonna get stuck. So what I'd want one of the halves. we'd want one half like that, and then, of course, like that. And then, of course, right, that's a half, which means that my adding a camera would have to be drug out slightly further back, which is honestly fine. I can add this. Add in the camera. We'll probably bring it back one more block. Then add the camera. Honestly, that's not half bad, especially if I pull this back end up a bit. Kind of in similar look to the rest of the ship. I think that's pretty decent. A nice quad assault cannon. I do need to, do I have at all any custom turret controller parts anywhere? I don't think I do. No, I don't. Okay. Do I have cargo containers anywhere else? By any chance? I do not, though. I do have vents elsewhere, so I can replace the vents at the very end with the turret controller, which, where is custom turret controllers? Are those under... Are those no longer under anything? They might not be. No, doesn't look like they are. Oh well. So what'll do, I'll simply add in just right back here the basic custom turret. And then I will, neither of these have any open, cargo ports, do they? They do not. Alright. Well, for now, now that that's there, I'll add it once again towards this back. Good. So we'll just kind of add that. Add you. Add you. Where is the... Add in you. We'll add in you just after we get past that front, so... I gotta remember that this layer, basically, is going to be the end that moves. Alright. And then we'll just simply add the point like that. And then we will go... And we'll add that there. There we go. So that will be, well, besides then, of course, adding in the block. Ooh, the roundeds could do pretty cool. Using the roundeds and then using the half blocks. I kind of like that. That looks pretty cool. And then, of course, doing a there we go. And then, of course, using and then, of course, building out the front a little bit. So using one of these to kind of do that. Building you, and then probably using one of these right here. Where I will then use right, simply using that to create this. And then, of course, using, again, I think I'll use the rounds here just because it adds sort of a, please stop shaking. They apparently really don't like these being here. I could do this. Not half bad, actually. And then using this right here. Because to be honest, that looks really cool. There we go. I kind of like that. The guns are kind of out in the open to be shot off, but I think if I simply do like the half block piece at the very back, maybe add a little side protection on these, I think this could be done pretty well. No connection points on the underside. Understood. And then we'll, once again. Oh, right. I need to remember this is entirely that, which means that adding blocks in this area reduces how this can move, which means that if I want to add blocks, I should add them to this. Kind of is the only option. So I guess that's what we'll do. We'll just kind of do two of these. Add that kind of like that. Maybe throw a and then I can simply throw in another one of these here. Where is that, like, very specific piece? Is that under these? It is. And then, of course, running in this sort of area, like a full block, and then running where are they? I think running these and then running full blocks again. Good. And then, of course, honestly, this is such a nice look for this gun. And then I think what I'll do is... do I have the... Where's... no. Do I have any tires in this? I do not have tires anywhere, so I'm going to grab 1x1 wheel. And we'll replace the... We'll replace the hydrogen engine with it. There we go. So we'll just simply replace it like that. And then, of course, running, adding, and then using the plate. Adding in like 2 of these sort of as like a vent, and then adding in something sort of that. All right. Yeah, Twitch still isn't working. I haven't been able to get access yet, so I figured still do YouTube. What do you think of this gun? What do you think of the turret? Also, what do you think of the armor plating? Let me just get it in day. That's still night, so we'll just pull it into day. What do you think of the turret I made? I still need to test it out, but if I quickly add in a chair somewhere. Good, we'll just quickly add myself a chair. And then if I go G, no, not G, I roll. Looks like one of those turrets found on a SPAA. Don't know what that is. Azimuth rotor. I believe it'd be 5. Elevation would be hinge. Camera should be the only top-mounted camera, and the available weapons should be the only available weapons. Okay, so it does not have any downward, but it does have upward somewhat. I like this gun. Alright. Pretty happy with this. It has no depression. Yeah, I need to fix that, which shouldn't be too difficult. I just need to quite simply change you And if I instead use that, I should now have depression on the gun. So, some good old barrel depression. That's the wrong gun. Here's the right gun. There we go. Which, this is about as much barrel depression as I'm going to need. And I'm going to assume that it is, yeah, that it's striking the ground. Oh, right, I also need to quickly go to the hinge. I think I'm going to keep that at that height, so I'll just add some blocks around the base. So I'll just basically do this. Wait, go back to the gun and look upward. 1 second, let me just add in this. What, like this? Is that what you're looking for? Honestly, it kind of looks like an AT-AT's head. Or do you mean, control it? Okay. Custom turrets. Control. Upward. There we go. Perfect. In terms of limited mobility guns, this is actually pretty good. And I can only barely just strike my own craft. That is a massive blind spot. I'm well aware. That's why this won't be the only guns on this thing. I just wanted to put custom guns on the front. And honestly, as things stand, I could probably shift that forward. But I am going to stick with it there, and then maybe add one further here, and then go here, and so we'll have three on a 1 block step between each other. And then, of course, we'll have probably a bit of a main bridge, where we'll also have some proper guns and not these custom ones. The custom ones are good, but they don't really allow it. And to be fair, I could reduce it by simply doing this. If I wanted to, I could quite simply just cut that off, and throw on a very basic where is it? Come on, where's the block? Yeah, I could even do that. That would allow it even more. Looking up. Control. Alright. Yeah. So, that would be the max unless I remove those. Which I might. Let's see. I might just remove you. And remove these. And instead go with. If I do these. Where the frick are they? There we go. Now that'll be a little bit better. So now what is the max angle? Alright, that's quite a bit better. It now has about a 40-degree angle. Alright. And yeah, that is literally the back end of the gun, which I can't really do much about. But I do still think it looks pretty darn good, so I think I'm going to keep it. It looks pretty good right where it's at, and so now comes the fun part of doing custom guns, which is let's readjust you to the more flat laying, and we'll pop off the top there. I'm gonna kind of build you a little bit bigger, and I think I'm gonna go with adding a hole right here. And then I think I'm gonna remove you and extend it 2 blocks further backward, which would put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in between the two sources, which, what's the difference between these two? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is nearly double the amount of distance between these two. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And instead, I'm just going to quickly throw together this plate. And we'll throw the rotors in there. 1 and 2. And Snippy and Snippy. Alright, now time to go figure all this stuff out. So I'm just going to detach the gun. Rotor 5, 6, 7. Yay. Okay, and now I need to Control C. And I got to somehow get you fitting right in the right location. Please sit right. That's not right. It needs to go forward a bit. No, that's still not right. Are you about center? It might let me connect that. Okay. Now I'm going to try to attach all 3 of these. And hope. What blew up? Oddly enough, the first gun blew up. I guess that's fine. No. Z. Good. I have absolutely no idea where the gun originally sat, so I'm gonna say it was right here and snip you and do you. Oh. Now that I think about it, I think it was a little further forward. We'll say right there. That looks too close. I'm still not happy with that. So I'm going to quite simply delete you. That is going very early in the front of the ship. Hopefully that looks good when I... Nope, not good. The other two went just fine, but you are really not happy with me. I'm gonna try it one more time. So it may go boom again. I don't think it blew up this time. I think it just attached properly. Yay! So we now have 3 of the automatic guns. I do need to reconfirm all of these settings, so we'll just come over here and type in custom turret controllers. And then we need to azimuth rotor. This one should be 6, and the hinge, well, I don't know what hinges on this grid. None of the hinges are on this grid. Yay. Okay, let's simply add in a control panel. You will now be hinge 2. Good. And we'll delete you and place you. Hinge. You will now be known as hinge 3. Good. And then, of course, I just need to go to you. Find you, and you will be Assault Cannon 5. 2 will become Assault Cannon 6. 3 will become Assault Cannon 7. And 4 will become 8. Which leaves me to go do the other bit of going over here. Oh, right. I also need to look at the camera and call you camera 2, and then move over to this one, make you assault cannon 9. This one should assault cannon 9. You will be known as 10. 3 as 11, and 4 as 12. There we go. And camera will be known as camera 3. Good. Okay, so now if I go into the custom turret controllers, I believe... So this is the one on mine, so I'll call this Custom Turret Controller 3. Alright, you are going to be Azimuth 7. You will be Hinge 3, Top and Founded Camera 3. And as for your guns, these are the correct guns. Good. Then we come over to you. Go to the custom turret controller. You will be controller 2. Good. Azimuth rotor 6. Hinge 2. Camera 2. Perfect. And so all of these should now, I think, be set up. Alright. Let's just verify by checking you. Yep, hinge, camera. You have 10. And perfect. So now we have 3 of those. Honestly, I very much like that look. That looks very nice. What is behind it? Oh, it's just the other ship. So it'd be better to look at it from this angle. Honestly, that is very, very pleasing to look at like that. That is so very pleasing to look at. And then, of course, what we'll probably do is, because the other guns that I can actually make that aren't going to be custom are either going to be the Gatlings, auto. They do have the assault cannons, which do have about the same range as that. But I don't really know any good place to put them besides, like, along here. But I do think I'll add a couple of them, and they will give me full view of everything. But I do like the... Okay, speaking of pleasing to look at, it's about time to make the channel icon easier to understand the small size. The icon becomes most of the time. Ah. Yeah. To be fair, I do have something. Someone has already made the channel icon. I'm just waiting to put it into practice. Basically for when I get Twitch affiliate. Hopefully that's kind of when I wanted to do, like, okay, I got Twitch affiliate. We're gonna kind of have like a big thing where I'll debut the new model and then switch over all of the channel's art and banner and all that kind of stuff, and really put in a big revamp of the channel at that point. However, it does appear like that's going to take quite a lot longer than I had originally anticipated. But yeah, that was kind of the main idea initially, which actually, ooh. I got an idea, but I don't know how well this will work. First of all, I am going to have to, at least from this point, cover those up there, and from this point, cover up that. And at least cover that from that point going further forward. All right. There we go. I really don't know what I'm going to be doing with this yet. I gotta have the idea of running a block and a half. So like a block down the center and then half a block. And then running that as kind of like a almost upward growing spine. But I'll have to figure out how high I want the... I think command tower... Where do I want, like, the command tower to really be? I got a good view of everything at about this height. So, what sort of height would that be? Because the other bit would be is that after, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go kind of inward a little bit. Adding sort of a wall there. And then if I sort of add the wall back forward here. And we finish you. All right. I think that'll allow it to continue to rotate. A stopgap would be to make a simplified art block of the icon, less lines, but more contrast, so it doesn't look like a strange alien wearing a helmet. Yeah, honestly, I do need to do some changes to it, but let me just quickly add a panel here. Do I like the height for this? Yeah, I think that's a good sort of height. Because then what I can do is I can sort of, at this height, run sort of a wall. I can't really do it down the front because of the turret. Oh, maybe I could. I don't know. I don't think that'll work. I think I'll kind of add a, maybe one going from there, and then sort of continuing to kind of go like this. And then, actually, I think if I was to do that, I'd probably want it a little further forward. Maybe here? Can I get any of the guns? That's an assault gun. But that would require even more space than this is. And I don't really like that look. If I was to add it anywhere, I'd probably add it here, given that design. But I do want to add two of them, so I think what I'll do is I will move this up a block. So let me just go remove the loose block. And I can show off, because I don't know. Yeah, I want to actually show off what the image is supposed to be of. Because I don't know. Have I shown that? Here, we'll do this. This is what the art's supposed to look like. So, that is the current channel art. It's just this in a circle. Which, to be fair, from a distance, it's somewhat hard to identify. But, yeah. It is actually a tri-winged ship, which I want to make at some point, but trying to make rounded windows is a lot harder than it sounds in Space Engineers. But that is what the thing is supposed to look like. We'll move back into Space Engineers. I think it looks pretty good. I'm not great at drawing. if you made the planet the center, then smooth out this result, I think that would work a lot better. Yeah. To be fair, though, that is something I drew. Yeah, I think I drew that in like, I don't know, 8 years ago now at this point. Like, it's been a long time since I drew that. All right, I think we'll add in the 2 of these.